Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about self-care and in particular a plant called aloe vera that I use in my own self-care treatments. This is my own plant which I absolutely love and find architecturally beautiful, and the Egyptians called it the plant of immortality for its beneficial properties. It's rich in vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and antioxidants. And it's an excellent hydrator, so it's a great way of getting water into your skin. The soothing and rejuvenating non-greasy odourless gel that is produced by the plant has cooling properties and suits all skin types. The plant itself is very easy to propagate. In fact, the one here you may be able to see on the left here already has a baby, or an offset as you officially call them. So I need to repot this very soon, and then I will have another aloe vera plant which will grow, and then I'll be able to use that as well. So I'm just going to put this to one side so that I can talk to you a bit more about the benefits of the plant. So I'm going to use a smaller plant just so that it's easier for me to demonstrate. But I want to talk to you a little bit about its uses. So it can be used in a variety of homemade body, skin and hair care recipes. And I really enjoy the whole process of using something that I've grown in other products that I make myself. And I just enjoy the whole process and find that actually quite a calming experience. So, how do we get the soothing gel that we're talking about out of the actual plant? So, one of the first things you've got to do with aloe vera is make sure that you've got your space ready that you're going to use to process the plant to get the actual gel. So, make sure that whatever you're doing, you've covered your surface in a towel. And think about all of the things that you might need and get all of those ready, because it can get messy, and it's best to limit that with taking care and some thought about what you need. So everyone has their own way of extracting aloe vera gel, and I just want to share with you the way that I do it. Not to say it is necessarily the best way. As I said, everybody has their own way, but I find that this is useful for me. So one of the first things you need to do is identify a mature thick leaf or blade from your plant. I'm going to use this one here. And you want to take the leaf from the outside. It doesn't grow back, they actually grow from the centre. So if you take it from the outside when it is big enough, then that's the most helpful thing to do. Be very careful, as the leaves you can see here are spiky on the sides, and you can cut yourself on these, so just be very, very careful. Now, sometimes you might need to purchase leaves to back up your stock. It depends what you're doing. If you want more than you can get from your plant, you can get larger leaves from, say, your local market. I've got one here and I'll explain in a moment why it's sat in water. So I have another one here that I purchased from the market this morning. So it's very hard to get them this size. I know in some countries aloe vera is grown outside and you have availability here, but here in the UK we don't often have this size available. So the market is a good alternative, or some specialist supermarkets. And this one I like because it always has the label on here that it's organic aloe vera. And this one comes from Spitalfields Market, which is a very famous market in London, down to my local market trader. So I'm very comfortable that, you know, it's been purchased from the market and is as fresh as you can get without obviously growing your own at this size. So what you want to do is wash the leaf and cut it like this, and I have got one here that I have done this with, and lots of people prefer to chop the ends off and then let this rest in some water, sometimes overnight, and I'll explain why you need to do that when I cut this leaf off here. So what you want to do is take a sharp knife, so be very, very careful when using sharp knives like this. So what you want to do is cut the leaf at the base with a very sharp knife, and then place it in a bowl with some kitchen towel at the bottom, and I'll explain why in a moment. Let me just move that out of the way so that you can see this. So some people put this in a bowl with a paper towel at the bottom. Some people place this in a jug of water overnight, and the reason for that is you're trying to get rid of this yellow tinged liquid. Now this is known as aloe latex, and this yellow liquid can irritate the skin, and it can also cause tummy upsets if ingested, which obviously you don't want. So best to remove that, and you can see just with a couple of minutes how much is coming out. So you want rid of that really. So we're going to move to our slightly larger leaf, and you can see this has been sat in water for a little while and the water is already gone slightly yellowy. So what you want to do is take a sharp knife, and you want to remove these spikes at the side of the plant. So I like to just use a sharp knife. Some people use a peeler. That's one. You want to get it on the other side as well. And then what you're trying to do is get the skin off so that you can get to the gel underneath. So very, very carefully slice through. And that leaves you with the leaf or blade, as we call it, totally open. And what you're trying to do is remove this lovely gel-like material. This is where it starts getting messy. So go very carefully, and you don't want that green material on there. So keep cutting as much as you can. Sorry, this bit needs a little bit of trimming. Right. I think we're going to stop with the blade. The other utensil you can use is just a spoon, so that you get all of this out. Probably safer if you don't like using knives to use the spoon anyway. And you just keep going till you've got all of that goodness. Now, don't waste these leaves, because I'm going to show you use for those a little bit later. I normally do this in the kitchen, obviously, and then what you can do in the kitchen is all the liquid that might go to the side, you can then just drain in to the bowl. So as I said, don't waste that, because we will use those a little bit later. So once you've harvested as much of the clear gel as you can get off the plant, then you can pop this in a bowl, and then I'm shortly going to blend this, because you can't really use it as it is like that. It needs to be much smoother. But what I want to do first is talk to you a little bit about the benefits of aloe vera. So it's a wonderful plant with a range of benefits, particularly for your skin. It's known for its hydrating properties, so it's a hydrator. It's anti-inflammatory and has wound healing properties, so it makes it popular to use on burns or sunburn and skin irritation that you get. It is also used in digestive health, but I'm not going to cover that today. I'm focusing on the skincare element. So it's used for hydration. So aloe vera itself has a high water content, which makes it an excellent natural hydrator. It's wound healing, as I've mentioned. It's been known to accelerate the ability to heal wounds and reduce inflammation and prevent infection. It's also known for sunburn relief, and it's a well-known remedy for cooling sunburn down and providing a real soothing relief to anybody that has been sunburned, which can be very unpleasant, and the cooling, hydrating nature of aloe vera is really, really helpful. It's also helpful for some skin conditions such as acne, psoriasis, eczema, and other skin conditions, really helping to cool and reduce that inflammation. It's also used as an exfoliator. So it contains enzymes that can help exfoliate dead skin cells. And as always, with some of the things I've mentioned, if you are under the care of a medical practitioner and you've already got concerns with your skin, then obviously speak to your medical practitioner first and check that this is okay to use and it hasn't got any potential contraindications. So now that we've harvested the clear gel, I'm going to just blend this because you can't really use it in the current state, so it needs to be blended, and then I will be back to explain what it looks like and how to process it in the next stage. So I've blended my aloe vera gel in the blender and it comes back all foamy like this. So I like to sieve that and then refine it again. So if we just pour this, this gets rid of any sort of large bits. So while that's running through, I just want to talk to you about some of the uses that you can use this liquid for once you've gone through its various processes. So I leave it in as a hair conditioner, and you simply rub the gel into your hair and comb it through and then leave it on, and just you can leave it on overnight if you want, or just then follow your normal hair routine and your hair just comes out amazingly soft. I also have used it as an intensive face hydrator, so it feels wonderfully cooling on the skin, and obviously you would then follow that up with a moisturiser, because remember this is a hydrator, and if you've got particularly dry skin you still need your moisturiser to lock in that hydration. It's great for sunburn relief or insect bites. Some people I know even use it as an aftershave lotion. As I mentioned earlier, some people do use this for digestion purposes, but I've not tried this yet. So when I want to use this in particular for a facial or indeed as a hair mask, one thing to be aware of is that you can get tiny little black specks in the lotion if you just sieve it once. So I like to refine it even more by using a muslin cloth. And if you pop that over a little jug with an elastic band around it. So we'll do that again. And that will continue. Slowly doing that. And once you've sieved it through the muslin cloth, that gets rid of these little black dots. Right, so we're going to leave that to drain for a little while so that we get it as clear from impurities as possible. And while that's draining, I mentioned to you earlier that don't get rid of the skin that's left behind. So I'm going to show you a use for that as well. One of the easiest ways of using up the skin is to almost use it as an exfoliator. So if you chop it into manageable chunks, you can see that it's still got quite a bit of the aloe vera left. So if you take a bit of sugar, and this is refined, it needs to be the refined sugar, and you sprinkle that on, rub that in, and what you'll find is that you can use this as a hydrator because it's really good at removing dead skin cells. So you've got that element that just removes those dead skin cells. I find it useful on my elbows where I get a little bit of dry skin as well. May as well do that now. And that's a really good way of using that up. So that's just an alternative way of using up that skin. Yeah, so that, you can see there's sort of little black bits that you really don't want. So that is useful to get rid of that, and you're left with something that is quite clear. This is overnight, so obviously that foaminess will go if you keep it in a sterilised container. It will probably keep in the fridge for about 4 days. The other alternative is that if you've got an excess, you can freeze it. So literally ice cube tray, and you can, let's come out nicely. So you can just use that to hydrate the skin. Very cooling as well. What you can also do with these is you can empty them from the ice cube trays, put them into labelled bags, and they'll keep in the freezer for around about 2 months. Obviously, there are all sorts of suggestions about how to extend the life of this, but generally, if you want to extend the life, then you have to find a natural preservator to add, which you can do, which makes your gel obviously last a lot longer. But I like to have it like this and then use that up. Now, obviously, because this can get quite challenging to use like that, what I tend to do is, these are little travel bottles that I've got left over, and using these little funnels, you can literally just fill these up with your precious liquid. And then you've got a bottle of aloe vera, naturally processed, and then you can just use it on your hair or on your face. And that is my way of processing aloe vera. So I really enjoy making natural remedies from things that I grow, and the aloe vera plant is just so easy. I actually came across a book the other day, and I want to share what they say about aloe vera here. This is Fran Bailey, The Healing Power of Plants. And I just came across this and thought it was very apt. So I'm just going to read what she says about the aloe vera plant. It says, many of us know about the medicinal uses of this beautiful fleshy-leaved architectural plant. The clear gel in the leaves is packed full of vitamins, enzymes, amino acids, and other compounds that are effective for wound healing and burns. The gel has antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties. The aloe's air purifying abilities are less well known, and it is one of the best plants for removing formaldehyde from the air in your home. This was news to me, so it was quite an interesting read. It will happily sit on a sunny windowsill and is extremely tolerant of neglect. Aloes hold moisture in their thick, succulent leaves, so go easy on the watering. Every kitchen should have an aloe as a first aid remedy for minor burns or sunburn. Simply cut a lower leaf back to the stem and apply the gel to the burn. I would remove the aloe latex first, but I get what she means. And after application, wrap the leaf in cling film and keep in the fridge for up to 2 weeks. So it's interesting. I was literally preparing for this video and came across that. So I thought I'd share that interesting summary with you. And as I said, one of the reasons I see this as self-care is not just because you're producing something that is really useful, but I just find the whole process really helpful. Just focusing your mind on just thinking about what you're doing, breaking yourself away from the stresses of every day, and just doing something calming and creating is soothing and really allows some de-stressing, I suppose, to take place. And I really wanted to share that experience with you. So I hope you've enjoyed going through that with me, and thank you for taking the time to share that with me. Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about the herb thyme and its many uses. I love working with my herbs from my garden, or the ones I've grown on my windowsill. I use this as my me time to focus on doing something that I love that is totally different from what I do on a day-to-day basis. And this time really allows me to relax and enable me to replenish my energy, leading, I think, to a much more positive mind frame. And I'd like to share that experience with you today. So, a little bit about thyme first before we move on to doing some demonstrations. Thyme is known for adding great taste to cooking, adding an aromatic flavour to things like soups, stews, stuffing, roasted vegetables, and dried thyme can also have a particularly strong flavour. It is part of the mint family with a pungent but slightly lemony flavour and scent to it. So as well as for cooking, which you may use it in yourself, thyme contains this active ingredient called thymol. And this has antiseptic and expectorant properties, so often used for medicinal purposes such as cough syrups. It can even be used as an antiseptic or antiseptic wash for minor cuts and grazes. And it's also used in homemade beauty products. And that's mostly what I want to focus on today. And because thyme has antibacterial and antioxidant properties and has that in anti-inflammatory purpose as well, it is so beneficial for things like blemished and oily skin and aging skin as well, and also for scalp care. And I'm going to touch on some of these during our demonstrations today. So I've brought in a few varieties from my garden, and because it's winter time, a lot of the herbs do look very similar. So a big tip that I would give you is always keep the label when you purchase these herbs, or if you're given them, I'm often given herbs, then do write a little label so that you can tell which one it is that you're picking up. When I first started working with herbs, I didn't do this, and I thought, oh no, I'll know what that is. And I know there are all sorts of apps that you can use which will tell you what it is, but it's just really quick and easy if you just either keep the label or pop a label on there. So this is my first one. So the first variety I've got is my green thyme, and this is known as Timo Faustini. And this is very much a compact evergreen shrub, and it has these dark green leaves, and in the summer it has these wonderful pale pink flowers, which makes it very pretty and recognisable. So due to its natural astringent and antiseptic qualities, it can help to really deep cleanse pores and help to control oil production. So it therefore makes a really good skin cleanser and toner. So I'm going to do a quick demo of this now. So let me just put the plant out of the way and get some of these demonstrations underway. So you have to do a little bit of preparation for this one. So find a sterilised jar and take some sprigs of thyme and place them in the jar. And then what you want to do is add to this a carrier oil, but your choice of carrier oil needs to be carefully thought through. So I've got a couple here, sweet almond and grapeseed. You could use coconut oil as well. And what you're looking for is the clearer, runnier oils, because this is a cleanser or toner that we're making here. So what you want to do is have something that's quite runny. So choosing something like olive oil or castor oil is not really suitable. It would be great. It would be great for a face mask, but not for something that we want to wipe off quite easily, such as a cleanser or toner. So you would literally put the sweet almond in so that it's adequately covering the sprigs. That's probably enough. And then I tend to leave mine in the fridge overnight so that the herb infuses nicely. And I happen to have one that I prepared earlier. I'm just going to use a paper towel just to avoid any spillages. So if you take your jar that you've had in the fridge overnight, and what you're after is obviously the liquid out of here. So if you just sieve that through. And then what I tend to do is use a little travel spray bottle. Some people prefer to use glass, which is fine, it's personal choice. I just find these easy to get hold of and to use. And then what you've got there is some lovely infused thyme lotion, which can be used as a cleanser. So if you pop that on there, that is lovely. Can be used as a gentle cleanser. And because it's got astringent properties, it can be used as a toner as well. So, good use of that green thyme. I'm just going to clear this away so that we can move on to another variety of thyme. So, another variety of thyme that I want to share with you is this one, and this is my white lemon thyme, known as Timo Silver Queen. And this is so pretty. It has small green leaves, but it has a little pattern along the outside of the leaf, which is slightly creamy, and it just makes it look so pretty. And if you brush your fingers on this, it has the most wonderful, strong lemon scent. And this works well in the garden, but also indoors as well. And when you brush past it, it leaves that lemon scent in the air. It's really, really quite pleasant. You can sometimes use this as a substitute for lemon in some recipes. So if you don't like that really, really strong taste of lemon, this gives it a mild sort of flavour, which is quite pleasant. I like to mix the leaves with some sea salt and some olive oil and a little bit of lemon juice, and this produces a natural body scrub. So I do want to do a quick demo so that you can actually see what this looks like. So do cut off a few sprigs of rosemary and take the leaves off. This is quite painstaking, this one, so you do have to take the leaves off. Because this is quite time consuming, but let's cut off one of these sprigs and we'll demo from here. So they do come off a bit easier. Now, because this is quite time consuming, I have done some earlier, but I actually find it quite fun being fiddly. But if you're not into that, you can use a herb stripper as well to get the leaves off. But what I'm going to do now is, just because I want this a little bit finer, it's a bit too thick to use as a body scrub at the moment. So I'm going to chop it a little bit finer. So let's take some of those leaves that I took off earlier, and then you literally get whatever herb cutter or chopper you like to use. I like this one because it really gets in. And what you already get is the release of that wonderful oil from the herb. And you can imagine what the body scrub is going to smell like. Absolutely wonderful. And you just keep going with this magical tool that I like to use for my herbs to get them as fine as possible. If you don't want to do that, you can put it into a blender, but I just find the blender just chops it up too far. You may as well use dried by that point, because you do need a little bit of roughness still left for it to act as a body scrub. Obviously, if you're doing this with children, be very careful because these blades are extremely sharp. Okay, so what you want to do is take your slightly finer chopped herbs and put those into a bowl. And then you want to add a little bit of sea salt, which is going to make it a little bit coarser. A little bit of olive oil. I love doing this, just mixing up and seeing what works and what doesn't. Such fun. And then just a little bit of lemon juice as well, I think, which enhances that lemon smell. And you can play around with this and practice to get it at the level that you want in terms of its coarseness. You might want to add more salt if you want it slightly rougher. But I just love this. And the smell is amazing. It's just the waft of that lemon scent from this lemon thyme. And if you have rough skin on your hands, you can use any herb. It doesn't have to be thyme, but some of the others work really well. Rosemary is another one that works really well as a body scrub. So just take the excess off. This is why you need white towels around. And actually, just to finish that off, I'm going to use some of that cleanser that we made earlier, just to take any residue off, if it works. And that's your lemon thyme. What did I say? This was Thyme Silver Queen, white lemon thyme. That's a very pleasant one. Right, let me just put this away. So another variety I've got for you to look at is one that you might be very familiar with. This one is called Living Thyme, and it's generally the one that's available in the supermarket. It still has its roots intact and it's generally sold for immediate use, but you can keep it going a bit longer by putting it into a saucer and keeping it watered. So when you're watering it, don't water the actual plant, put your water in the saucer and the roots will take the water up from that. So if you don't have a garden, this is a great alternative. And you can use this to make either the body scrub that we've just done or the cleanser and toner that we made earlier. I would say this has got a much milder, subtler fragrance. So if actually the other varieties are too strong for you, this again might work much better for you. Okay, so just a few other ideas. Let me just get my next demo tray ready for you. So there are lots of things that I can't demo simply because of where we are. So one of the things I do want to share with you that this herb is really useful for is for steaming your face. So if you take a handful of fresh thyme and add it to boiling water, obviously be careful where you're doing this. Kitchen table near the kitchen sink is always a good idea. But the steam will open up pores and cleanse the skin as well due to the properties of the herb, and it's very, very useful. So thyme infused water can also be used as a final hair rinse to improve scalp health, and this is because it's got antifungal properties within it. So it's really helpful for an itchy skin. So you can use that as your final rinse. Just infuse the water with the thyme sprigs and then just use that as a final rinse when you shampoo and condition your after you've shampooed and conditioned your hair. So that can really help with an itchy scalp. Now, interesting this one, and apologies for this, it also makes a really refreshing cup of tea, and I have this broadleaf thyme, which is wonderful, and I've had tea from this and it is great, but something's had a little nibble at my broadleaf thyme and I don't have enough left to share a cup of tea with you, so apologies for that one. But you know, that's herbs and insects for you. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Now, do remember that when you're using thyme, particularly the essential oil in your beauty products, it's got to be diluted with a carrier oil or another medium. Sorry. Also, with thyme, it is worth doing a patch test, as the thymol it contains can cause irritation if you're prone to allergies or have sensitive skin. So one of the remaining suggestions that I'm going to make for you is not a beauty product, it's more of a craft product. But if you've got loads of sprigs left, so you've got loads of thyme left over, you can simply take an old jar, and I've just got some lavender left over from a previous craft idea, and I would suggest you try and dress this up. So put your leftover lavender in there and just make a bow so that you're dressing up the jar slightly. And then what you can do is take your leftover sprigs and put them into the jar. Just keep going, as many as you want to fit in. And I love making these sort of herbal bunches. And I find with thyme, I'm always inclined to mix it with a little bit of rosemary. Now, obviously, I'm doing this all in one go. You might want to just take your time and make that much more decorative than I have here, but the smell is amazing. So you've got some rosemary in there as well. And I actually think that would make quite a nice little gift. And you can dot these around the house and they give a wonderful aromatic herbal scent. And if you want to add a little bit more scent, you can use essential oils here. And this is cedarwood, which would go very well with the thyme and rosemary you've got here. And you only need a couple of drops. And you can actually, that is very nice. That goes very well together. And you could even give that as a gift if you wanted to as well. If you know somebody that really likes herbs or essential oils, you can use that as well. So, obviously, despite the cautionary notes, the use of herbs is absolutely wonderful, but there are a few warnings that I do need to give. So if you're making something like this, the one thing that you do need to be aware of is where you place it. So keep it away from little hands and little paws, or you can buy potpourri pots with lids where you can put fresh herbs in without risking anybody getting their hands on them, but do have that awareness that essential oils and some of these herbs can be quite strong and cause a reaction. But that being said, you can see that this herb has some wonderful properties which are often overlooked but so useful. So I hope that you have found some of my suggestions helpful and you've enjoyed sharing this experience with me. So thank you for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about using the herb basil. I know for some of you this is pronounced basil, but in the UK we call it basil. I love working with fresh herbs from my garden and use this as a little bit of me time to focus on doing something totally different to my day job and something that focuses my mind away from everything else that is going on around me. This time allows me to relax and replenish my energy levels, leading to a more resilient and more positive mind frame. And I'd like to share this experience with you today. It's mostly known for its uses in cooking, such as creating pestos, adding to pizzas as a topping, and also adding to a salad. It's part of the mint family of herbs and has a very distinctive aroma and flavour. And the leaves are oval shaped and have this bright green colour. And there are a number of varieties, and I've brought in 2 here from my garden, from my wonderful herb pots that I use and hang on my fence and work really, really well for the herbs. So the first variety I have here is known as Greek basil and sometimes called bush basil. And this is the one that I tend to use in cooking mostly. It grows really fast, so you can easily cut it back and use plenty, and then it will keep growing. And it adds a lovely, delicate flavour when added to the end of a dish. The one I will be focusing on using today, though, is this one, which is sweet basil. This is the one that I like to use to make my homemade products. I love the aromatic smell of this herb. And as I said, this is the one that I'm going to use to make some products today. So while I tell you a little bit about what is good about basil, I'm going to snip some of these stems off and remove the leaves. And don't worry if it looks like I won't have much left. I have about 3 of these pots in the garden. Okay. So let me just snip a number of these off. So while I'm separating these, I'll talk to you a little bit about basil. So it's well known as a culinary herb in cooking, but it is really quite helpful and versatile in helping deal with skin problems. And this is because it's rich in properties that reduce inflammation. So it has antioxidants, including things like eugenol and camphor, and essential oils. Indeed, you can purchase this as an essential oil to add to your massage blends. These oils can also combat stress on the skin, often caused by free radicals in our environment. And those can lead to skin problems and aging skin. It is also anti-inflammatory, and it can really help to soothe irritated skin and reduce redness. This makes basil really good as a natural remedy for irritated skin. So it's also rich in antibacterial properties, hence it really helping with inflammation of the skin. So it helps to target and remove bacteria that can cause things like breakouts and redness. And this also makes it useful when dealing with things like scrapes and minor cuts that you might have. So using basil-based products can help to exfoliate the skin, remove those dead skin cells, and then reveal a really nice, soft, smooth, well-cleansed skin. So I want to share with you some of the useful products that I make from basil. And literally by just adding a few kitchen basics, you can make some really wonderful homemade remedies. And they'll really help to make your skin feel refreshed and glowing. So we'll get rid of this. And then what I want to do is just take some of these leaves, and you do need to give them a little bit of a wash. And that's really just to remove any of the dirt that's left over from the garden. put this to one side for now so that you can see more clearly what I'm doing. So once you've dried those a little bit, we're going to begin to make our first product. So we've washed our leaves now, and what I tend to do after that is start to chop them. So I prefer to use a herb cutter such as this one. Other people prefer to just blend the herbs, but I like doing mine this way just to get some clearly defined cuts on there, which helps to really release those essential oils from the leaves. Does give your arms a bit of a workout, but I enjoy this part. Now, obviously you can keep going as long as you want to. And if you want to make this even finer, you could put some of this into a pestle and mortar and crush it a little bit more. Or, as I said, you can put that into a blender. And then what you would do with this is put it into a small bowl. And then you would simply add some honey to this. Round about a tablespoon will do. And mix that thoroughly together. You want it quite sticky, but you want the honey coated in the basil leaves. And then that becomes a basil and honey face mask. So I'm just going to demonstrate it on my hand here. But you can see that goes on really well. And the smell is just wonderful. And it's really cooling and refreshing, and you can imagine that on your face, providing a real good cleanse on your skin. So do be prepared to get a little bit messy. So obviously what I want to do is just wash that off. So just wash that off. And that's my first example of what you could use basil for. As an alternative to the honey, you could use a thick yogurt, which would be really cooling on the skin as well. So the next thing that I'd like to make for you is a basil toner. And the way that you do this is you take your washed basil leaves and put them into a bowl and pour on boiling water, and then allow that to cool in the fridge overnight. And that's what I did here last night. And always put a label on. I mean, my refrigerator's full of little jars and bottles, so I always make sure I've put a label on so that I know what this is. So I've got basil plus boiled water, and then the date that I did that, which is important. So what I'm going to do, just remove that for now and put a towel on here just in case this does get a bit messy. So you want a spray bottle. I've got quite a large one here which I use, but you can have a small one as well. And what you want to do is that's lovely. Take that basil water and just distill some of it into your spray bottle, and then you can put the remainder back in the fridge. And then you've got a nice cooling spray. In fact, where that previous treatment was, I can wipe that off with this. Okay, so that's your basil toner. Now, another product that I like to make from basil is the basil and lemon scrub. I know it looks like I've got a lot of things going on here, but obviously normally you would probably only focus on making one product. It's just I'm making quite a few to demonstrate to you. So with the basil toner, what you would do is again cut some basil leaves up. We've got some that we had left over from that first go. Just chopping the remainder that I had left over. And as I said, you can have this as fine as you want. You can really take it to a paste if you want by using a blender, or you can just keep going with this. And once you are happy with the consistency, then put that into a bowl. And you can make as much as you want. I'm just doing a little bit here to demonstrate. And then what you want to add to this, because you're making an exfoliator, is you want to just squeeze some lemon. into that. And then you want to add a generous tablespoon of refined sugar. Use that to give it a bit of a stir. And that creates more of a scrub, so it gives you a little bit of resistance there and grittiness, which is very good at getting rid of any dead skin cells. So it's where you feel you need a little bit more than, say, just the mask that we had earlier. You need a little bit more grittiness in there to create that. I'm just going to wash that off my hands. So that was my basil and lemon scrub, and it's very aromatic, so the lemon adds to that as well. So the next one that I have for you is called a basil oil. Now this one I've had to prepare in advance, but again, with one of my jars, this is basil plus I've put it in with a carrier oil, so sweet almond oil, and this is basically an alternative to you just adding a basil essential oil into there. What you're doing is you're putting the basil leaves themselves and then adding the carrier oil in. And then what I would do is use a funnel to take out the oil that you've had in these leaves. And you don't need a lot. And we're going to take the leaves out because we're going to do something else with that in a moment. And then what you have here is a lovely basil oil. So particularly if you've got skin that really needs calming or redness, you can literally just put some of this on. And it's almost like creating your own basil essential oil there. I'm going to put some on this hand as well. This hand's feeling neglected. It's a wonderful smell. And what you can do with the drained leaves that you've got here is you can put these back into the pestle and mortar. So the pestle and mortar just allows you to crush those leaves a little bit more. And this leaves you with a paste. It might be useful to put this one in the blender because you want the paste quite smooth. And if you've got skin that needs calming down, this makes a lovely paste that you can leave it on. So if you've got skin that needs a little bit of healing, So it can make a nice basic healing paste. So, a few words about basil. It's generally safe to use, but as with all herbs, people can experience a reaction such as a skin rash or itchiness, especially if you're known to suffer from other allergies. So, do a patch test, maybe on an area that's not really quite so visible, and see if you do get a skin reaction. And if you do, obviously don't use, but generally basil is okay to use. Do only apply it to unbroken skin though. So a few more things to note about basil. Obviously, if you're using it as an essential oil, always remember to mix it with a carrier oil first. And some basil products can make your skin sensitive to sunlight, so be aware of this if you're planning to go out in the sun and you know that your skin is sensitive, then probably basil is not the thing to use. And also a high intake of basil, such as if you're taking it through a supplement form, can interact with certain medications, so you do need to check that. And basil supplements should also be avoided during pregnancy and breastfeeding. But basil is such a wonderful calming herb, and I hope you've enjoyed sharing my experience of focusing on this herb and creating some of the wonderful products that we've just produced in a matter of minutes, which you might find useful as well. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. One of my favourite herbs and essential oils to work with is lavender. It's so versatile. You can use it for cooking and baking, in beauty products, and also for crafts and decorating. So today I thought I would share with you some of my craft ideas because I've not explored this route with you before. So to set the scene, I'm going to drop some essential oil into my oil burner. Now I am very fortunate enough to live within travelling distance of a family run farm which has loads of lavender fields, and I try and get over there a couple of times a year to visit them. And this time I picked up their latest bottle, one of their latest bottles of pure lavender oil. So I'm just going to open this new bottle and drop in a few drops of the pure lavender oil. And before I even put the oil burner on, I can smell that. It's wonderful. I'm just carefully going to put that to one side. And what I also wanted to talk you through, really to set the scene, is the fact that I'm surrounded by lavender plants, and I've taken the opportunity to bring some of my own lavender in from the garden. Unfortunately, I can't film outside at the moment because it's typical English weather and absolutely chucking it down with rain. So I thought I'd actually bring some of them in. So behind me here I have got my English lavender. The Latin name is Lavandula augustifolia. Hopefully I've said that correctly. And this type of lavender is very versatile. It can be used to make essential oils. It has its culinary uses, and you can make some of the decorative things that we're going to make a little bit later. They tend to have dark purple flowers on them and have a strong fragrance, which really gives that sort of calm feel, and you can almost smell as the oil burner is releasing that lavender. It has a calming impact on any atmosphere or mood, which is really helpful as an essential oil. So I've got a few varieties here. So this one, and I would suggest you always keep the labels, because when I used to grow lavender years ago, I just put my lavender in the garden, and the first thing you do is take it out of the pot, bin the label. So I've learnt over the years to keep the label in the pot, so you know exactly what you've got here. And here we've got lavender munstead, which is lovely, has a wonderful fragrance. And the other one that I picked up at the lavender fields that I visited, which I haven't seen before, is this one called Melissa Lilac, and obviously made me think of my daughter Melissa, who many of you know. And I'll do a little bit of research on this one so that I know what to do with it and make it grow well for next year's crop. I also have some white varieties, which I quite like in the garden. It gives it a little bit of variety. So I've got a Nuke White and Arctic Snow, which really add a little bit of colour and break up the purple and the pink that I'll talk to you about in a moment. Most of my plants at the moment do need cutting back. I need to find some time to do that, so they're probably not looking at their best, and obviously you need to cut back to avoid having that woody element within the plant. What I also have is some French lavender. I've got a compact version here and a different variety here, and the French lavender is known as Lavandula dentata, and it often has a much sweeter fragrance and is used in potpourri and flower arranging. You have to be careful with this one because it's less tolerant of the frost that we have in England, so sometimes you need to just keep an eye on the weather forecast and bring that in if you need to. So what we're going to do now is look at using some of these wonderful plants to make some crafts. So one of the simplest decorations to make is making lavender bunches. So a few weeks ago I cut back some of my lavender, and the twigs have been drying on my curtain poles for some time now, and I've actually adapted my own drying rack from things that I had in the house, and here's mine. It doesn't look wonderful and neat and trim, but it works. So this is actually one of these multi-hangers that you have in the wardrobe, and I tie bunches of the twigs that I've cut off and hang those up, and then hang this onto the curtain pole, and it makes the perfect method for drying your herbs. I also do this with rosemary and any other herbs that I want to dry, and it works really well, and you can get them really cheaply. You can get a number of them in a pack. So I thought I'd share that little homemade gadget with you. The smell is absolutely amazing as well, and once ready I simply bunch the twigs together and use them in vases or to decorate around the house. So I've got one here. Just going to take the elastic band off. And if you've got a nice vase, you can literally just put them in. And the smell is absolutely incredible. And you could decorate a vase and actually make that as a gift. Somebody would love receiving that as a gift with a nice bow around it. So that's a really easy way of using something that you have in the garden with that wonderful aroma. Now, you don't have to grow a mass amount of plants if you're just using it for your own use. A few plants is plenty, so if you're daunted by having loads of plants, you don't need to, just do enough for your own use. I've got quite a small garden, so I need to control that. But if you are planning to make gifts, for example, you might want to source some more bunches, and I often find them on the market or at garden centres as well, or online you can get them as well. So if you're making lots of gifts, that might be a better way to go. So that's the first of my craft ideas, so lavender bunches. Now my second craft choice is potpourri. So what you need to do for this is place your dried lavender buds into a bowl. So I've started doing some here. And I have to keep my lavender contained because it does go everywhere. Actually, what we will do, or scrap that idea, is we're going to use the one. So, using the ones that I've just unwrapped. Actually, I don't think I'll need all of those. To be aware that the lavender goes everywhere. So now there are various ways of getting the lavender buds off these, and I tend to roll them on paper, and you keep going. And you'd be amazed at what comes off. So already you can see how many of the lavender buds have come off. And you can actually just funnel that. I find it easier to put it into a little jug. And you just keep going. I would take any big stalks out. Now, one of the things I always pick up at the lavender fields that I visit is a bag of their dried lavender, because sometimes you just don't get enough from what you produce in your own garden, and you can just add to what you've got. And just retain the rest for another craft. And what I also like to do with potpourri is to add in some of my rosemary from the garden. So literally and that just adds to the smell. Oh, that's wonderful as it's coming off. You can add that. You can, if you're patient enough and you want to take off every leaf, you can do it that way. And just add that in. And it adds an extra herbal dimension to that lavender. So what I then do is take the lavender and rosemary mixture. One of the reasons I like to have it in a jug is because it's easy to pour into this. And what I then add to that, and I find this works really well, is adding in a few drops of rose essential oil. Now, if you prefer to add something else in, but rosemary, lavender and rose tend to go very well together. Rose is quite a thick essential oil, so it does require patience. That's one drop in. You literally just need a couple of drops, especially as rose is one of your expensive essential oils. So literally just a couple of drops. And leave that to one side for a week, and then after the week you can put it into a decorative bowl or a bowl like this. And place, oh actually that's wonderful, and place that wherever you want. Now, if you want to spice this up, so say you've got a festive season event, you could add some different essential oils. I've got here, one of the things I would suggest was cinnamon, which is associated with Christmas, or clove bud, or something like juniper berry would work well in there. And sometimes if you add orange peel or lemon peel to this, it adds that sort of festive feel as well. Now, if you have pets or children, you need to make sure that you've got a cover on this. So if you like having lots of this in the house, it's best to get the potpourri pots that have a lid with smaller holes in that little fingers or paws can't get into. My final craft choice is lavender sachets that can be used in drawers and wardrobes to keep insects away and always leaves a natural pleasant scent. Now I do need to get a few props for this, so bear with me. So the first thing that you need to do is have a sachet to put your lavender buds in. Now there are two ways of doing this. You can make your own, and I've got an old muslin cloth here which I love the pattern on. Something like this is great. So old material, or this is actually muslin cloth which works well. And you literally just cut back to size, and you can sew down the edges like this. and then you would put your lavender in here, and then you would put a bow around the top, so that will work nicely. And I've got loads of bits of material that you can use to make a wonderful bow, or if you prefer a plain old muslin cloth, these are the ones I use for making my beauty products, and that would work equally well. However, if you want to use this activity to make gifts, a useful one to do with children as well, you can buy ready-made bags, and these come in very generous packs. So this one comes with a choice of 3 decorations on it with the ribbon included. I mean, I have loads of ribbon from old gifts. I don't bin anything, I just keep them around, so you can use that, or it does actually come with its own ribbon. And what you do is fill these up, so we're going to attempt to do that, but I just want to show you the variety that you can get. This is what you're aiming for, something like this, and this is one that I bought at the Lavender Fields, and what they've done is actually given you a bigger bag and some lavender buds in there, which again is useful. So what we're going to do is use some of, actually what we will do is just remove that, and we'll just aim to make one of these. And what we're going to do is do what we did before and just take some more of this. And I often do this in the garden where I've got more room. If you've got an old sheet and you just keep going, it's wonderful. Of course, the beauty of something like this is if you're stressed or you're trying to really focus, then this really helps you to calm and refocus your mind, ready to be resilient in other areas. And you just keep going. You think that's amazing. That you're getting that for free. And so that's literally come from those leaves, and you just keep going and keep going until you've got enough that you need. Again, if you've got one of these bags of the buds that you can pick up locally, then if you've not got enough from your own plants, then you can always add some more in. And then literally, let's use this one. I find it much easier if you actually use the jug. So once you've done that, you can literally pour these in. And just use either the one they've given you, or you can use any ribbon that you've got around. And that's lovely. I think that makes a lovely gift to somebody. very sweet. And you can just keep going. As I said, these are very reasonably priced, and you can get ones that give you different patterns, and that is wonderful. Now, if you use these yourself, obviously at times you might want to add a little bit of a essential oil, say a couple of drops of pure essential oil, which will refresh the sachet, so it can keep going for months in your drawers. So 3 wonderful ideas. So you've got your lavender bunches, and you've got your potpourri, and you've got your sachets that you can create or create your own. And the whole idea of this is that you are focusing on this, just taking yourself away from everything else for an hour or so. And the smell of the lavender itself is very, very therapeutic. So if you feel yourself getting overwhelmed at times, then something like this is actually some valuable time spent almost as a reset to allow you to cope with everything else that is going on. As with anything herbal, please think about where you're putting these items. Cats, for example, do tend to stay away from the smell of this as it's quite strong. But obviously, if they get curious, then do move them away or keep a lid on the bowl. Children can often mistake potpourri, particularly if you're using the bigger buds, as sweets, so do cover them. But do enjoy making these items as well. I personally find it very therapeutic to do this, especially as I'm growing my own lavender. I mean, I'm no expert, but I really do enjoy the success that I've had with them. Not perfect success. I have had some lavender plants that have been eaten by various things in the garden, but on the whole, I've enjoyed the success I've had with the plants, and I have loved being able to share with you some of the crafts that I really enjoy making. The benefits of lavender are very well known, and it's one of my favourite oils to relax to. So thank you for sharing in these activities with me, and thank you for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about self-care and carving out a bit of me time by doing something that you enjoy. One of my favourite things to do is to work with herbs that I grow in my garden and turning them into something that is useful, such as home remedies. And I want to show you how you can use herbs to create simple but effective hand care products and have some me time, some chill time while you're actually doing this. One of my favourite herbs is rosemary, and I've taken this from my garden this morning. We're going to use this herb to create a wonderful and relaxing hand care treatment. So to start off getting us ready for the treatment, I've got a bowl of warm water here to which I'm going to add a couple of drops of rosemary essential oil to follow on from the theme of rosemary, and then I'm going to use this to cleanse my hands. And already you can smell the scent of rosemary there. And I'm going to just use that nice warm water there to really cleanse the areas that I'm going to work on, just to make sure that they are absolutely scrupulously clean. Just going to put this bowl at the side because we will need it later. And then before we start doing any treatments, I always like to check my hands visually for any contraindications. And obviously I've got the benefit of having a magnifying glass, which I'm going to use now. If you haven't got one of these magnifying glasses, then just try and do a thorough check over your hands. A bit drier. And the reason for this is you might have something that could cause a reaction to the herb or a scrub if you're using a scrub. You don't want to do this on areas that are a little bit tender, that you might have bruised just through everyday movements, or often it's the tiny little paper cuts that you might have got in everyday work or indeed through cooking or everyday activities. And you just want to check that there's nothing obvious. Really looking for minor cuts, open sores, bruises, anything like that that is going to prevent you from doing a treatment and giving your hands some TLC. Okay, that is all fine. So we are good to go. So the next stage of this treatment is to do a body scrub over the hand area, and that is to remove any dead skin cells that are there. That is to help create a smoothness across the hands that you're looking for. So one of the things I like to do is take the rosemary that I have in the garden. Now I have two types. You'll see this one, which actually has quite a strong aroma, but is quite stocky in the middle, and that means the leaves don't come off as easily. I've got another type of rosemary whose aroma is not as powerful, but the leaves do come off, you'll see, much more easily than they do on the other sort there. And our aim is to create a body scrub to remove those dead skin cells. And you don't need a lot. So what we're going to do is take this wonderful herb cutter that I have here, and I actually find this quite therapeutic and relaxing. And you just keep doing this till you've got some really finely chopped herbs. You can put it in a chopper and a blender if you want to, but as I said, I just find this nice to do. And this is all about finding something that you love to do. Right, I think that's enough. And what we've got here is just a little bit of sugar in the bottom of a bowl. And then you can add in your herbs. And then I would add in a little bit of coconut carrot oil. You can use most, but I like the clarity of the coconut oil, and it seems to mix in really well with the rosemary. And there you've got an instant body scrub. Now what I like to do with this is leave it and then pop it in the fridge so it's nice and cool. So I've got one I made earlier and the herbs are a little bit more finely chopped. And then what you do with this is you use it as a body scrub. So you simply rub this on to your hands, and that will help to remove any dead skin cells. And while I'm doing that and rubbing that into the skin, I just want to talk to you about the benefits of rosemary, because it is one of the most wonderful herbs and has a lot of natural elements within it that can really help. For example, it contains antioxidants, and that really helps to prevent your skin from damage caused by our environment. Could be the cold weather, like in the UK, or it could be the opposite. It could be warm weather that's causing your hands to feel maybe dry, or it could be your a job environment where in particular you're using your hands a lot and they are maybe dry and need that little bit of TLC. That all takes its toll on your hands. Rosemary, it's also an anti-inflammatory, so it can soothe irritated and inflamed skin. So it can really provide relief if you've got dry or damaged skin. You know, maybe your job is really focused on using your hands and they're very sore and irritated at the end of the day. Maybe you're using parts of your hands and putting constant pressure on that. So this would allow you to really spend some time getting rid of anything that might be irritating the skin. And rosemary is known for its balancing ability to make sure that the sebum in your skin is balanced. And the scent, I wish this was smell-o-vision, because the scent of rosemary, particularly because I've got the natural scent there and the infused scent plus the essential oil, and it adds to that overall wonderful sense of healing that rosemary can give you. It has, the aroma itself has a powerful ability to relax and create calmness, which will help you with your well-being when you're trying to create that little bit of me time. Rosemary also has other benefits, such as it's great if you're using it to relax muscles. So if you've got sore muscles and a little bit of pain, it can improve the circulation and give you that sense that it is working into those areas that might be a bit sore. So the next thing that you need to do so that we can move on with the treatment is to just remove the grittiness that you created with the body scrub. So if we take back our bowl of warm water and we just want to get rid of those dead skin cells. If it's easier for you, obviously you can go and run your hands under the tap. I find this quite relaxing. And then just dry your hands. So I've just got to get a few things for the next stage of the treatment. So about a week ago, I cut a sprig of my rosemary and I placed this into a container and added to that some olive oil. So this has now been infused for quite a while. Wonderful smell there. And what I'm going to do now is just pour some of this into a separate jar. So just enough for me to do a hand massage. And these are old little jam jar pots which just give you enough to do a massage, and then you can retain the original infused rosemary and keep that in the fridge for a little while longer. Obviously you do need to strain out the rosemary because otherwise you'll be back to creating more of a body scrub rather than a moisturiser, which is what we're aiming for now. So what you can use this for is an absolutely fantastic moisturiser, but at the same time you can use it to massage this area as well. And you can do some basic massage moves. So for example, on your fingers, particularly if you suffer from aches and pains, literally just give them a little bit of a massage with this oil, and that will help it to penetrate the skin, but also give your fingers a little bit of a massage, particularly if you've been doing manual work or typing. Your fingers will benefit from something like this. The other area that people need a little bit of massage and care on is this wrist area. So giving it a little bit of a twist or a little bit of a massage that way. Do the same with the other hand. And if you want to, you can take the oil a little bit farther up, particularly if you've got dry skin on this area. People do get that there. And the other area that people often miss out on is this area here. You often put hand cream on and you go like this or like this. but this area gets missed out and you end up getting dry patches in there. And also this area gets really tense, and it's lovely just to give this whole palm area a little bit of a massage. I can really feel that today. It's really helpful. A little bit of a stretch there as well. You really feel like you're giving this part of your body some real attention that it deserves. If you leave this moisturiser on the hands for as long as you possibly can, and then if you've got things to do, you can just use a towel to wipe off the residue, but you will be amazed at the difference that something as basic as this can make to your skin. And also, part of this is spending a little bit of time doing something that you enjoy. It doesn't have to be this, it can be something else, just to give your mind time to relax. And overall, it's very beneficial for your well-being just to take time out to do this. So thank you for sharing this experience with me, and I hope you've found it beneficial and refreshing. Thank you. Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about self-care and ensuring that you make time to do something that you really enjoy. One of my favourite things to do is to work with herbs from my garden and make them into something useful. At the same time, the focus needed for this allows me to switch off for a while and leave all my worries till later when I'm feeling much more resilient and balanced. One of my favourite herbs is mint, and I'm going to share with you today some of the things that I make with this wonderful herb. And I've got two varieties with me today that I've brought in from my herb garden. This is garden mint, and behind me here I've got spearmint, which we'll use a little bit later. So having a mint plant adds a wonderful scent and aroma to your garden, and it's very easy to grow, but you do need to contain it, as I've done here. The reason for that is it can grow really, really quickly and take over your garden, and obviously can integrate with your other herbs, which you don't want it to do. So just contain it in a pot or a specific area of the garden away from other things so that it won't overtake them. One of the things you do need to be careful of with mint, especially if you have pets and especially if you have cats, is to be aware that mint is toxic to cats. So you need to be very careful with it. And I've got cats myself, so my herb garden is covered so that the cats can't get to it, and that's probably the best way of preventing any little mishaps that you might get with curious cats. So, what are the things that you can do with mint? So, the first thing that I tend to think of is food related. So, I like to sprinkle some chopped up herbs on my yogurt and berries in the morning for breakfast. In the winter time, if I'm having porridge, I can sprinkle some finely chopped up mint over that, and it adds a different flavour dimension. And with mint, fresh mint, it is very rich in things like antioxidants, all types of vitamins, and essential oils, which can really help with skin health. And chopping the leaves is what releases this goodness. So I'm going to do a little bit of a demo just to show you what I would do. And obviously, if you're going to chop the leaves, you don't need much. And the pot that I grow my mint in is sufficient for my use. I don't need any more than that. So take some nice sharp scissors, or some people prefer to just break that off. What you want to do is just pull off lovely leaves from this fresh garden mint. And you can see this one's slightly damaged, so you don't want to use that one. Just use the ones that haven't got any marks on them and are disease free. I think because I'm going to chop this, I'm going to just do a little bit more. A few more leaves. And then one thing I would always recommend is that you wash the leaves. And that will get rid of any dirt. And you can see there's a little bit on that one. I don't think you can see this on the camera, but there's lots of little black bits that have come off here. And you don't obviously want to eat those. So just dry those leaves slightly. Now, what some people do to bring out the flavour is they do something called smashing, which is when they go like that on the mint. But I prefer to chop mine. And I do have this wonderful herb chopper, which I was gifted many years ago and still use. And I find that when you chop it like this, you can smell instantly how it releases the oils from there. And I actually find this quite therapeutic. But do be careful, it is a very, very sharp blade. But the release of those oils is wonderful. And you just keep going. Actually, I'm just going to turn that round and do that this way. And there you have some finely chopped herbs. If you want them finer than that, you can do. You probably need a grinder to do that, or you can just keep going with a little bit of extra therapy by using the herb slicer, herb cutter. And that leaves you with some finely chopped herbs, which you can literally just sprinkle a little bit onto your breakfast in the morning, and that really elevates the taste. So that's my first demonstration of mint. Be aware, once you've chopped the mint, it does get everywhere, so having a cloth handy may be needed. Other food ideas that you could use this for is including adding mint to a protein shake. It totally changes the flavour of maybe what your regular protein shake tastes like. You can also add some leaves to a salad, literally just rip them or keep them whole. But if you want to change the flavour of your salad, then just slightly rip them. Or you can make a pesto as well. I've done that before. Or in the summer, if you add mint leaves to ice cube trays, freeze them, and then add them to drinks, it really adds another flavour. So that's my first example, so what I call the food category. Secondly, you can create a lovely skincare oil, and here's how. So I'm just going to bring my demonstration tray over and take a few things out of here so that you can see them clearly. So secondly, you can create a lovely skincare oil, and here's how. So one of the things that you want to do is obviously cut sufficient leaves for your needs. And again, I would recommend that you give them a little rinse and just take off. You can see this one's slightly blemished, so I would take that off. And then what you need to do is get a sterilised jar. And literally pop this in to the jar. And then what I would suggest you do is take a carrot oil that you're comfortable using. I've got a couple here, castor oil and sweet almond. I think I'm going to go with castor oil here, which is quite a thick carrot oil. What you need to do is close the lid and then give it a good old shake so that the oil coats the leaves. And then you want to put that into the fridge for 3 to 4 days. So I have one here that I put in, I guess about 4 days ago now, and you can make a note on the front. I've got a little label here which tells me that I've used black peppermint and the date that I did that on. Now, just to show you, black peppermint is another variety. It's got very small leaves, but it's a much more pepperminty smell than the garden mint or the spearmint that we're going to use later. And you can really get an immediate smell of the black peppermint here that has permeated into the oil. But it's obviously the oil that you want for your massage or whatever you're going to use it for. So one of the first things that you need to do is drain off the leaves. So we'll do that now. Put that to one side because we're going to use that in a moment. But what you can then do is, if you've got some old jars lying around, as long as they're sterilised, you can use those. So you could either pour the oil into here, and this is an old jam jar, and there's just enough in there to do a massage. Or what I like to do is to funnel this into an old travel bottle. And then you can use this as your body oil when you need to. So for example, if you've got dry hands, you can actually just pop that over. You don't need much. And that's gonna, as well as smelling wonderful, that's really going to add some moisture to your hands. The other thing that you can do with the leftover mint leaves is, if you've got a pestle and mortar around, is take the leftover leaves and then just grind them. Do be aware you can get a little bit messy with this, but it's worth it. And then what you're left with, obviously, this needs to be ground. This needs to be ground a little bit more. But you are left with a paste eventually if you keep going. And this is very good if you've got little cuts and grazes. You can put this onto the skin. You can either dab it on or actually leave it on for a little while if that's possible. And it almost has like a calming effect on the skin. So a lovely extra healing remedy for that. Okay, I'm just going to clear this away and then I'm going to wash my hands to move on to the next stage of the demonstration. So lastly, I want to share with you how I make a lovely cup of clean tasting, refreshing tea. So I'm using a different variety here, which is called spearmint, and I just love the flavour of spearmint, and the smell is wonderful as well. So there are so many mint varieties that you can choose to grow. You just grow what you like, and then you want to pick off some leaves. So these are slightly smaller. I'm just going to put this out of the way so that you can see what I'm doing. And then you literally just pick the leaves off that you want to use in your tea. Now, some people prefer to just put the leaves straight in. I do tend to wash mine first as well. And do just check the leaves while you're doing this. You don't want any that have got diseases on them or have got blemishes on. Now, some people prefer to just put the leaves as they are into the teapot. I literally just do a little bit of crushing with my herb cutter, and I think that extends the flavour a bit more. And you don't need much, you just want to crush the leaves slightly, and I think that helps to release the flavour. So I have got some hot water in my teapot. So I'm literally just going to add my tea leaves into there, and you put in as much as you want, and sometimes it's a little bit of you need a little bit of practice. You need to do it a few times to get the strength that you're happy with. And I would let that brew for about 5 minutes, but again, it's personal choice. So let it brew or steep is the more formal word for it. Now, if you don't have a teapot, what you can do is use one of these diffusers. So you would literally put your mint leaves in here. Actually, we can just take some off to demonstrate this. And again, you can chop them if you want to, or you can just mash them up to release the oils. And then you close this up. And what's useful with these is it's better used probably in a mug rather than a teacup, because you can simply pop that into the mug and it stands up nicely, and you would leave that to steep for 5 minutes. So one thing you could do is put a timer on, or you could just approximate the time. So when you think you've got enough time to reach your flavour profile, so take your teapot want the sieve there because the mint leaves will have dissolved slightly, so you might get some grainy bits in the bottom which are not pleasant to drink. So just strain it with a tea strainer, and then you have some wonderful, clear, refreshing tea. With that wonderful spearmint flavour. That's really refreshing, actually. Lovely. So the last tip I want to share with you is just a note about storing mint that you want to keep fresh. So what you can do is just cut off some mint stalks like this from your garden. So particularly in the winter, if you don't want to keep going out into the garden, then you can put these stalks into a glass or even a mug with some water. And then if you put a cover over this, it can be plastic or some other cover, what you're trying to do is just retain the humidity. Make sure you've got some water in the bottom, and that will keep fresh in the fridge for a good few days, ensuring that your mint is available. Okay, I'm going to have another sip of this tea and I'm going to enjoy this. That is really refreshing. So that brings me to the end of my demonstrations on using mint from my herb garden. And I've really enjoyed the time thinking about all the things I could use mint for. There are obviously a lot more, but hopefully I've given you a few ideas. But also the whole purpose of this is, as you can see, I enjoy this. It really is giving yourself some me time to focus on something that you really enjoy doing. And I have really enjoyed sharing that experience with you. So thank you for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel today. As part of my series on using herbs in self-care, I would like to focus on using one of the most common herbs, parsley. This herb, I feel, is quite underrated. Although we use it a lot in cooking and adding it to salads, the benefits of using it in home care beauty products is less well known. Parsley is rich in antioxidants, high in vitamin C. It has anti-inflammatory and antibacterial properties. It can help to brighten your skin and cleanse and hydrate it as well. So I would like to demonstrate a few ideas that you can use parsley to make and really extract the benefits of parsley. And this is really relating to products that might cost you quite a lot of money. What I'd also like to introduce you to is parsley tea. This one always surprises people at how good it actually tastes. As always with herbs, especially if you're going to use them concentrated on the skin, do a patch test on your skin just to check for any possible reaction or irritation. That is unusual with parsley, but when you're using it concentrated like this, you never know. So what I first of all want to show you is obviously what parsley looks like. I'm sure many of us have seen parsley around. So what I've done is I've brought in my outdoor parsley that I grow hooked onto the fence outside my back door. It's looking a bit wilted because it rained last night and it's still recovering, so it's still a bit damp. Now, if you do decide to use your outdoor parsley for beauty products, the one thing you've got to be really cautious of is the amount of dirt and insects that you can bring in on the leaves of the parsley. So if you are going to use your outdoor parsley, then you need to thoroughly wash it, probably a number of times, to make sure that you get rid of all that before you use it as ingredients for beauty products. What I also do, I've got one demonstrated here, is I grow my own parsley from seed on the kitchen windowsill, and it always works really well. So this is the one that I tend to use for beauty products more than my outdoor one, and I tend to use the outdoor one in cooking. So that brings me to my first demonstration, which is a parsley toner that I'd like to share with you. So to do this, you need to start with a handful of parsley, and the one that I'm going to use here is flat leaf parsley. So you'll see it's slightly different to the curly parsley that is here. It has a slightly more subtle fragrance if you're using it in cooking, but for beauty products either is perfectly okay. So what you want to do is literally just chop this quite roughly. Now, I'm not using a herb cutter for this because that tends to get it too fine for what you want to use it for. But even with this, the smell is just wonderful in terms of chopping herbs. The smell always seems to relax me somehow. Once that herb oil is released, you can really smell that. So I'll put this to one side for a moment because this is probably enough. So what you want to do is just pop that back into the bowl, and then what you would do with this is you would pour boiling water over this. If you're doing this with children, obviously be very careful and keep the boiled water well away from them. But once you've covered it with boiled water, then put that to one side and leave it to cool for about half an hour. So I'm just going to put this to one side. So what I've got here is some that I made earlier. Okay, so I'm just going to get my second jug ready for this. So all you're interested in is the liquid really that's left behind. So take that out of that. So that's your clear cooled parsley liquid. And then to this, what you want to add is a teaspoon of fresh lemon juice, and that really helps with brightening your skin. Need a bigger table. And then what I would also add is a teaspoon of honey. And the honey is for hydration. And let that dissolve in. Give it a good stir. And then just for ease of use, what I tend to do is use these travel bottles. Now they are plastic, so some people say that you should put beauty products like this in glass jars. It's personal preference, so whatever you're comfortable with. Actually, we don't need our funnel because we can just pull that in. So what you would do is just spray this onto a cotton pad. And just treat it as you normally would one of your expensive toners. I'll just practice that on my hand. So I've got some mark there. And it is very refreshing to use. And you can keep that in the fridge for around about 2 weeks. An alternative to the lemon juice and honey is that you can take your cooled parsley water and add in some apple cider vinegar, some lemon juice, and some green tea. And what that produces is a slightly more powerful toner, which is still not full of harsh chemicals, but it has a slightly more astringent feel. So I'm just going to clear this away so that I get ready for the next demonstration, which is a parsley face mask. So my second demonstration is a parsley face mask. So parsley is very rich, as I said, in vitamins and antioxidants, which is really helpful for improving your skin tone. It's antibacterial and anti-inflammatory, which means it can really help to reduce any inflammation you've got on your skin and any breakouts. And it really helps to cool irritated skin. Sometimes you've just got that area that really feels quite itchy and uncomfortable, and parsley can really help reduce that irritation. So you again need to take a bunch of parsley leaves and chop them. So this is left over from our first chopping session. And then what you would do is actually put this into a food processor with a little bit of water. Now you need quite a lot of parsley, and be careful how much water you add. It does turn to liquid quite quickly, so keep an eye on it. And then obviously if it becomes too thin, then add some more parsley in. But it's better to put less water, and otherwise you'll use an awful lot of parsley. So once you've done that, and I've got some that I blended earlier, you can see the consistency is quite thick there. And then what you would do to make this into a face mask is you would add in yogurt and stir, mix it in. Around about 2 tablespoons of yogurt should do. And this is just Greek yogurt I've got here. And add to that, I would tend to add a little bit of honey as well, just to add in some more hydration there. leave that to absorb. And then give it a good old stir. Said it's very cooling and refreshing. So you can either be really mucky and add this onto your face with your fingers, or you can do it with a brush if you want. But can you imagine how cooling that is if your face is feeling irritated? This is just, I mean, it's feeling wonderful on my hands actually. It's one of the nicest ones I've come across. But I really like that. And the best thing to do is if you've got it on your face, then go and relax somewhere for 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and just close your eyes and relax for a while. And then just make sure that you've got something to wash this off with. And it does come off quite easily. And what you could also do is use some of that toner that you made earlier just to clean off any other bits that are left on there. My hand actually feels wonderful. And then after you've rinsed that off your face, you would just moisturise as normal. But it does leave a very cool and sort of cleansing feel. And if you've got leftovers, I mean, I've got some leftovers here, so I'm definitely going to be using this tomorrow. So if you have got leftovers, make sure you put it into an airtight container and it will stay in the fridge for about up to a week, and enjoy the refreshing face mask feel that gives to your skin. Right, I'm just going to clear up from this face mask demonstration because I want to move on to making the parsley tea. So I did say to you earlier that I wanted to share with you parsley tea. And this is an unusual one that I came across simply by dabbling when I was doing something else. And I thought, I wonder if that would make a good cup of tea. And it really does. It's really surprisingly refreshing and clear. So just a quick note regarding tea. The tea comes from the Camellia sinensis plant, which contains caffeine. So what we're doing here is not officially known as a tea. What we're doing here is making an infusion, which is a much broader term for steeping plant leaves in hot water, and is generally known as a herbal infusion where you're using parts of the herb or even a plant. But people often refer to these as herbal teas. And these ones are obviously caffeine free, whereas tea is actually has caffeine in it. So what you would do with this, take either a tablespoon of dried parsley, or roughly chop again a bunch of fresh parsley, or what I like to do is, and I've got some boiling water in here, and what I like to do is just break off some of the nice clean stems. And again, if you are using outdoor parsley, then please make sure it's thoroughly washed. But otherwise, your kitchen windowsill parsley will do absolutely fine. And just pop that in. The other alternative is these wonderful, if you haven't got any teapots around, is these wonderful herbal diffusers, which you can literally just pop in your herbs, and then you would put that into the cup and pour boiling water over that. And then you can add maybe some lemon juice or some honey to taste. So what you would do with this is obviously strain it just in case any of the parsley leaves come through with that. And you can see it's got a real clarity about it. Let's just try this. That is really nice. It's really hard to explain, but it has a real clarity of flavour, a real cleanness about it, which comes from the parsley, and I really enjoy drinking this. Now, for those of you that like a slightly sweeter tea or tea infusion, then obviously you can add a little bit of honey, or actually sometimes just a little bit of lemon juice in there will give you that sweetness that you need. See, that changes the flavour, but still got that clarity and cleanness to the taste, and I find this really quite refreshing. Now, do please note that parsley is a potent herb, so it should be used in moderation. So don't drink loads of this. Obviously, moderation is the key when some of these herbs are quite strong. One of my last suggestions for parsley is that it can be used as a natural mouthwash or breath freshener. It's high in chlorophyll content, and that neutralises sulfur which we find in our mouth, and it therefore can reduce bad odours. So you can simply chop some fresh parsley leaves and add that to some distilled water. One suggestion I like is that you can add mint leaves to that as well. And a tablespoon of vodka as well. Strain that mixture and use it as a mouth rinse, but do remember that you mustn't swallow it. So another tip is literally just chewing on parsley. If you feel like you've got that sort of bad odory taste in your mouth, actually chewing on parsley can really refresh your mouth. So there's a couple of extra tips on that. So I hope you have found some of these suggestions useful, and always it's a way of introducing a bit of self-care. I find that my mind, when I do this, is so focused on what I'm doing that it does allow me to relax and helps me feel refreshed and ready to be resilient for the next round of challenges that we face. So thank you for watching.